Welcome to the Customer Catalyst Conference 2021, to our session focusing on customer success, featuring Lee Miles, Chief Customer Success Officer at Sitecore. Sitecore provides customer experience management software aimed at corporate marketers and marketing service providers. Even as Sitecore acquires new companies, evolves to adapt to new customer expectations, and shifts to subscription pricing, ensuring customer success is 100% critical. Adam Joseph, Regional Vice President of EMEA at Gainsight, speaks with Lee.
I'm Adam Joseph, the Regional Vice President of Customer Success here at Gainsight, and I'm thrilled today in this session to be joined by Lee Miles, Chief Customer Officer at Sitecore, and we're going to be talking about how customer success can really lead to sea change business transformation within a business. And I can't think of a better example than what Sitecore has done. So it's a real thrill to speak to Lee. How are you doing, Lee?
I'm very well, thank you, Adam. How are you?
Yeah, doing great. As I said, really excited about this session. I know we've got a great story to tell, which I think will be of huge relevance to everyone listening to today's session. So first of all, Lee, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background and your role at Sitecore.
Yeah, thanks. As you mentioned, I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at Sitecore. I've been with the company just a little under 1 year. My previous history would have been companies like SAP, Infor, more recently Red Hat. I worked in very customer-centric roles, actually mostly in growth markets and emerging markets around the world. So some elements of Asia, some parts of the Middle East, and then Europe and finally North America. So really, like you, excited to be here, excited to tell a little bit of our story, and really, hopefully, we can give some good insight into what we're doing here at Sitecore.
Absolutely. Now, I've been with Gainsight for roughly 2.5 years, and we've been fortunate to count Sitecore as a great customer and partner of ours, even that goes back beyond when I started. But in the time that I've been at Gainsight, I've seen a tremendous evolution of how customer success looks and feels at Sitecore, and how you deliver value to your customers, either directly or through a network of partners. And I've seen a real acceleration of that over the last 12 months, which obviously coincides with your role. Tell us a little bit about the background introduction of CS and something about the evolution to maybe when you joined, and then some of the building blocks that you started to put in.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sitecore has a 20-year history, so it comes from actually a very different time and a very different age as an organization. So, you can imagine it started as a perpetual, on-premise, type of organization. It's been through a couple of reiterations of technology, as you can imagine over that 20-year period. And we've been very acquisitive. We've acquired 6 companies in the last 3 years. And in fact, we've acquired 4 companies in the last 9 months.
Wow.
And of course, the technology of those companies then is very modern and SaaS focused as an organization. So we've had to evolve and we've had to change as an organization. Our customers' expectations are very different now, how they would have been even 2 or 3 years ago in terms of what that they would want from a vendor and what they want from technology. So we've evolved a lot. We're challenging a lot of our organization, which is great fun to be part of, I must admit. But as a customer success organization, what it means is we've put together, what would have been the traditional support group. We've created a cloud operations and SaaS operations to go alongside it. We've taken the knowledge and learning, our training, an academy organization and put that in alongside our customer success organization. And last but not least, the services and delivery part of our business. So, we're 450 plus people, which is over a quarter of the overall employee base of Sitecore is focused on customer success. And even the customer success managers, we've grown since I started in January this year. We've gone from 10 or 12 of those to 60 plus customer success managers, which just gives us an amazing coverage model now. We can really touch customers in depth for those more strategic customers. And, obviously, we want to make sure that we get full coverage of all of our customers so we can start introducing some of the new programs across the whole of our customer base. And as we've acquired so many companies, of course, our customer base has grown significantly in the last, 6 to 9 months as well. So it's a fantastic mix of everything coming together. But by bringing those 4 distinct areas of the business together under customer success, we've really set our stall out to say, we understand customers' expectations are very different to how they were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And we have to adapt to that. And of course, the technology is different to be able to do that as well. So it's been a fun start. And, we're only partway through the journey, quite frankly.
I can imagine. And you referenced there some of the huge changes that you're seeing as a business. You spoke about moving customers from perpetual licensing to subscription. I know there's a big project going on to move customers from on-prem to the cloud. You're talking about a big acquisition history as well, and just how the number of people within the org has increased as well. So there's so much change going on both externally and internally. How do you, frankly, how do you just keep yourself sane? How do you kind of manage all of that change effectively and still make sure that customer success is maturing in the way that you want it to?
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, is the customer. The demand, we wouldn't change unless the customers needed us to change, right? So, if you look at the world, and that, and that's part of what I think the customer success officer should be doing, right? They're in the leadership team of the organization, they're the one role, if not all the roles, but the one role that's really looking at everything through the customer's eyes. And I think, it's on me to drive that behavior within Sitecore, within the leadership team. But if we have that customer view in mind, actually, it makes it very easy and very, you can distill your decisions into very simple decisions to make. Is it going to benefit the customer? Is what I'm doing day to day, week to week, going to benefit the outcome for the customer? And if you can keep that in the top of mind, then actually it makes things a much easier, process internally, because you just adapt everything to that. But if you think about how customers have changed, Gartner will say, over 60% of the sales cycle is now done before the vendor even knows it existed, because the customers can find so much information out, about what they're trying to do, the referenceability of you as an organization, the other experiences of customers either in their industry or in other industries. So actually, when you're getting the call, they're already most of the way through the decision. Of course, they want to know, is your product up to standard? Of course, is it, modern in terms of its architecture? Will it fit their environment and their ecosystem where they're moving? And they want to know what kind of customer experience you're going to create for them. So, that whole buying journey is extremely, new. Well, it's not so new, but it's extremely different to the past history. And of course, as an organization, you have to adapt to that. So, if you consider a customer is most of the way through that journey, your referenceability is important. The way in which you treat other customers is important. And again, if that's the main focus of you as an organization, the decisions that you have to make become a little bit simpler, because you're creating a journey for customers, and hope and then you hope that experience is a good one, so that at the end of it, they either continue doing business for you, but they also do, they're referenceable for you, and that's really important.
So I loved what you said about being very, keeping focused on outcomes that your customers are looking to achieve. And that's something definitely here at Gainsight we align with as well. We have our own framework around delivering outcomes for customers, and it's one of our key leading indicators for success as well. But of course, it sounds great, and it is, but actually delivering that is tough, particularly where you've got an organization of the size of Sitecore, particularly where you don't necessarily have always direct communication with the customer, because you have an ecosystem of partners that you work with as well. Given that you've grown organically and also through acquisition and trying to bring everyone under the Sitecore banner, how have you been able to really understand those outcomes at scale, and particularly where you don't always have the direct communication with customer, and you're still trying to bring some of these newly purchased businesses under the kind of corporate sphere of Sitecore?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, this is where partners play such an important part. If we think, of the ambition of us as an organization, the demand that the customers have in the market, and that, how the market's grown, the space that Sitecore is in, we're a content commerce vendor, right? So, you can imagine the pandemic has just accelerated everybody's need for a digital footprint. Absolutely. And we just can't meet that demand on our own. So being able to blend, where a customer says, I want to be able to do a content strategy overall. I want to be able to take, what I've got as an existing strategy, perhaps, some of there was a good example. We gave some awards recently at our symposium in October. One of the customers that got an award was a company called Cracker Barrel from the US. very well known in the US for being a home food restaurant type environment.
Know them well.
How do you transfer that to a digital experience? And they've done lots of online merchandising. They've done lots of the now delivery, obviously through the pandemic. They really made that transition from physical to digital. So if that's the demand, and there's and every customer is now saying, I need to have at least 60 to 70% of my business done online or through a digital platform of some description. The demand on the market's massive. So getting that blend with our partner ecosystem and us is extremely important. So what we've done is we've done sort of three key things. We all organized our customer success into three key areas. So one is our onboarding process. So if you think about how do we make sure a customer has the same experience if we were doing the implementation as if a partner was doing the implementation? Well, you have to certify your partners properly. You have to make sure you onboard and enable those partners extremely well. So that's two areas that we've really focused on and upped our game and really grown our organization to do. You then got to think about, okay, well, what's the end state I want this customer to be in? So once you've gone through that initial onboarding, whether it's a Sitecore owned implementation or a partner owned implementation, you still want the quality assurance. So when a partner is saying, we can say to a customer, look, the partner is well qualified to do it. They have X number of certified people, but we will put a thin layer of Sitecore services on it to make sure you have a quality assurance, like the stamp of approval at the end of the project to say, yes, this is best practice, this is what we should be doing. But of course, then you move around into what we would call adoption. So you want to make sure that you adopt the technology, you adopt the features and functions that you need as a business and that you coveted when you went out to the market to choose something. So there's a whole adoption program where really now our customer success managers come into play, our knowledge and learning and education people come into play, where it's important that we're giving enough people within the customer organization enough value and enough knowledge to be able to say, yeah, we can implement these features, we can implement these functions. This will deliver the value that we wanted to make sure that we had in the first place. This is going to answer our business challenge. And then, of course, you come through, then you say, okay, now I've got a system set to a way that will deliver the initial value. How do I consume more? Right? Across geographies, through divisions, more throughput into your websites, through your mobile apps, etc. So then you start expanding the business, organically. And of course, for us, that's the whole customer life cycle. So we're creating those, onboarding experiences, the adoption experiences, and the consumption experiences across all of our organization. Just doesn't fall under just customer success. The sales teams, the marketing teams have to be engaged and involved. Even the impact of our finance. Our finance team are starting to understand the intricacies of their process and the impacts it has on the customer and the experience they have as overall of us as an organization. So it's been a fantastic initial journey. We put the first building blocks in place, and then we expanded it out to the whole organization and kind of rewrote the customer life cycle so that we can ensure that at every touch point, at every moment through that initial experience, right through to an experienced customer, they're getting the touch points they need, they're getting the value they need, and they're getting ultimately the usage of the software they need. Because otherwise, that's there's been a huge history. If I talk about my SAP Info and Red Hat days, and lots of people will have this similar and same experiences. Did we ever truly fulfill, the RFP requirements to delivery for many reasons, not just the vendors, but lots of outside influences. And that's really where we have to focus as a customer success organization is how do we remove those roadblocks? How do we get customers through that life cycle? So that ultimately, the experience they have is they want to buy more from you. And that's what we want to get to. We want them to do more and more with you.
I mean, one of the things that you said, I think I was most excited about was how not only what you're doing within the world of customer success is impacting customers, but understanding there are so many touch points that a customer has with your organization and partners as well, and thinking about collectively and holistically the journey that they have, not just when they interact within customer success. And I think organizations, I've seen some being very siloed, where actually customer success swims against the corporate tide. and therefore things fall down very quickly. And I've seen some amazing leaders in customer success or CSMs kind of fall by the wayside because it's been very siloed. So for anyone listening to this who was trying to really create customer success, not just as a group, as a function, but more as an ethos that permeates across the rest of the business. Now, I think clearly the role that you have as kind of chief customer officer is important to that. And I firmly believe that you need someone with a seat at the table who can speak in a peer-to-peer relationship with the CMO, the CRO, and many others about making sure that this is a collective philosophy across the business, not just the name of a group. But what advice might you be for others listening to this who are also trying to create that more systematic change around the customer and maybe struggling to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky, the leadership team that we've created in Sitecore, and actually Sitecore appointed a new CEO, Steve Jakakis, about 14, 15 months ago. And he comes from a background of very customer-centric organizations. And, he kind of champions actually the kind of customer outcome and the customer value piece. So that actually does make it very easy, or not very easy, but makes it easier, I would say, to get your points across. But actually, again, like any, different part of the business, you have to sell the value of what you're doing and how it impacts the rest of the organization. If I can make it easier for the sales team and the marketing team to, talk to our customers, if I can make it easier to sell more solutions to, or grow the footprint of the Sitecore estate in a customer, if I can make those tasks easier for the sales teams, the CRO is, my best friend, right? If I can make the whole process of, invoicing and process with the finance team simpler because, we understand what the customer is expecting and how they want to interact with us. Again, I can make the CFO my best friend in the ELT. So, these types of activities, really, it's on me to sell those bits of value. But I think as an organization, if you have that North Star, which is, customer outcomes is the key, part of our value system within an organization, then you can, you have to, every part of the organization lines up behind that. And I think that's really, you've got to win over your peers and your leadership teams. But I think it's important that the CEO has the same philosophy as you, as having a very customer first or customer centric mindset.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I mean, you kind of referenced there around referenceability, advocacy would have been a better word for that. and clearly, one of the things I love is that you can't get better marketing when you hear one of your customers shout from the rooftops how much they love working with your organization. How, in terms of some of the other outputs from customer success, I mean, one of the big differences that I've seen is that originally when customer success came along, it was all about mitigating risk, right? There was a huge, customers were leaving in droves. And so we created this function called customer success to help plug that gap and make sure that we were losing as few customers as possible. And then as time has gone on, we've moved more to customer success being a kind of customer success 2.0, being all about growth. Right. And there was a fabulous article, I think it's McKinsey who wrote it a while back around customer success 2.0. So are you seeing customer success within Sitecore? Is it viewed as part of a growth engine as well, not just for referenceability and advocacy, but also helping to identify potential up or cross sells that then passing back on to sales? Or indeed, is account management part of the team that falls under customer success at Sitecore? How's that kind of growth engine handled, and what impact do CSM have on that?
It's an important kind of a reflection point for us, actually, because what we realized is, when, as an account team, as a traditional account manager team, we touch very few of our customers overall. And so, we just don't have the breadth and scale to be able to do that. So, one of the things that we've done is we have a 3-tier model. So we have a high touch, mid touch, and we've just introduced a digital touch from about July onwards. So what that means is we are the only part of our organization that touches all the customers, throughout the year. So, we have a fantastic opportunity almost to set the different types of programs. We want to be able to make it easy to do business with us. So if you think about, as a digital touch, as we call them, I'm sure that's, it's pretty standard in the industry here. You create a digital touch team, you have to make sure you can sell digitally. You have to make sure you can market digitally. There's no point in saying, well, here I am, touching you electronically, but you're going to need to come to our office for a demo, to be able to look at the latest and greatest of our organization. So we've changed the way in which we go to market. And again, we come back to that right at the beginning of our discussion here about challenging everything. We've challenged how we go to market. We've obviously with the acquisitions, we've changed the size and type of our target operating model as overall as an organization. So if you want to be a SaaS-based organization, you have to, be ready and prepared that, a customer can, find out most of the information they need electronically through either your website or through other means. They're able to interact with you electronically without the need for face-to-face or big cumbersome, proof of concepts or any of those kind of traditional things that we used to do. They want to be able to, point, click, be able to say, yep, I can read your terms and conditions as an organization. I know what your SLAs are. I know what your product can do. I can now set up a sandbox demo environment. I can test my data in that. And now I'm happy to, purchase. I might want to talk to you about the commercials, but, we've got all of those capabilities now as a digital organization to be able to service, many more of our customers. So I think, when you think about that change and what that means for the market and for us, it's just that easy. It's just that ease of doing business. You want to be able to make sure that as an organization you are, we're servicing all of our customers, not just a select few, and also those prospects that you want to become Sitecore customers at some point in the future. You want to be able to make it easy for you to be able to engage with those. So a lot of the programs we've created as a customer success organization, for adoption and, value realization, we're able to transpose those into the selling motion so we can, start to do the same thing for prospects. So it's been an exciting, kind of realization from our perspective that a lot of what we can create in customer success, can be used in other parts of our organization as well.
Yeah, I'd love to drill down on that point, actually, because I think if I think about the conversations we're having here at Gainsight, there are probably three kind of big focus areas that just keep on coming up time and time again. One would be, we referenced earlier about, making what you're doing more outcomes based and, identifying what those outcomes are and delivering them. The second has been all around the huge kind of exponential growth really all around CS operations and this kind of whole new role within the world of CS that are enabling the CSM teams to be successful and also administering solutions like Gainsight as well. And the third area has been this huge rise, as you called it, and we do as well, the digital CSM. And the number of questions and conversations and webinars that we've led separately on this whole digital touch approach has been huge. So what was it, you mentioned that previously you only touched maybe a relatively small percentage of your customer base as a whole. So was there a particular inflection point where you thought now's the time? What was it that meant when you pressed a button to click go on it that was the right time? And how did you go about actually enabling it? Because obviously that it's doing it on the scale that Sitecore have done is I'm sure presented some phenomenal challenges, but also helps to, I'm sure there are some key metrics in mind. You say, look, here's a North Star for digital touch customers. Here's what we think is an A-star approach, and these are the outputs that we'd get. Could you give us a bit more detail on that?
Yeah, I think, if I look back now, I wish we'd started it 2 years ago. I think the initial work that's been done by that team, and the creation of those teams has meant, we didn't know what we didn't know when we talk to customers. If you're not talking to your customers, you don't know where they are. You don't know where they are in their life cycle. You don't know if they're happy or displeased with you. You don't know whether they're getting great use of your software or not and looking to go somewhere else. And these are really important factors when you think about, it's not an easy decision for a customer to choose a new solution or to choose a piece of software and roll it out. These are big projects, right? I mean, if you think about, content as an overall, concept within an organization, it's such a valuable asset within an organization. It's how you portray yourself into the outside market. So these are not trivial decisions that customers are making. And I think, for us, we made the decision from day one when I arrived. We were fortunate enough that, Sitecore, we made an investment and growth plan, which was pretty ambitious, which fueled both the organic growth internally as well as the acquisition trails we've just been on. But really with a view to say, we need now to engage with all of our customers. We need to engage, with a much bigger market in terms of our, prospect market. Our total addressable market is very different. We needed to plug some solution gaps that we've done through the acquisitions and modernized our stack. But I think, once we made that decision, then, it's a matter of saying, okay, we need bodies, we need people to come in on board. And then we need to know what we're going to say to customers when we first reach out to them, or we first start to build programs. And I think, that for us was quite exciting because we hadn't done that before. So when you're bringing, 30 or 40 new people in to come and do that, you hope that actually you're employing the right people to come with ideas. And I have to say, we didn't have any preconceived ideas of how we were going to do it. We just knew we needed to do it. And I'm pleased to say that talent's come in, created that organizational part of the organization themselves, and then really, understood, okay, so if we're going to go out now and make sure a customer can move through that, adoption and consumption phase, what are the things that I need to do? We've changed significantly how our training and education teams work, right? We were 2 years ago, 90% of what we did from a training perspective was on-site, learning. It's less than 10% of what we do today, because we've just created a whole e-learning function. We've created all of the tutorials that people need. There's a lot of stuff that our partners have made available, which we incorporate into our learning practices now and the like. So, that was just it seems like a simple or obvious example, but it was something that Sitecore wasn't doing. And now we've, changed that ethos completely because, we're very conscious that we want customers to during that life cycle to say, I'm getting good value from that software. That's an important part of my infrastructure. Can we do more with the vendor like Sitecore or the partner that is engaged with us on Sitecore? Because they have the right solutions. They have the right solutions, and they have the right mentality to be, customer centric. And I think that's what that whole digital function and the creation of those different programs has given us, that the further reach, but actually ultimately a new way of thinking about things.
I mean, you raised some great points again about value, and that doesn't differ whether a customer's in your tech talk segment or any of the others. But whether a customer has got ROI, return on investment, or managed to get to their outcome can sometimes be quite subjective. As a working within the vendor, you can sometimes think, this customer, if we look at usage, if we look at engagement, everything looks terrific. And yet the customer still might downgrade or churn. So how can we take what's your view in terms of taking the subjectivity out of whether a customer has got value or got to their outcome? Is it that you collect all of this, you get very specific in terms of tangibles in the pre-sales process, you make sure those are collected, documented, handed off to the implementation team or the partner, that eventually gets through to the CSM, and you're using things like quarterly business reviews or executive business reviews to do it? Or are there other methods to make sure that you're keeping on track so there are no nasty surprises for either the vendor or the customer?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say here is if we think about the B2C world, so the consumer experiences that we all enjoy these days, they're seeking continual feedback on, how was your experience? How could we improve? And we've adopted a similar, we're not the only vendor that's done that. I'm sure there's, plenty of other vendors, but I think that's the one big change. We used to do an NPS survey once a year. That was the only feedback forum Sitecore used to have 2 or 3 years ago. Whereas, how do you gauge, right? You send it out to, 16,000 people, you may get, 5% people returning your details. And then you have to decide, what kind of changes do I need to make as an organization to meet, the feedback that I've got. So now we're seeking continual feedback, and by having that coverage model, you can checkpoint at every stage through that life cycle. You can start to make incremental changes in the processes as you go. nothing is wholesale changes anymore. You don't have to, pivot your whole organization. You can just make small incremental, changes overall as an organization. And I think, we're obviously here with you from a Gainsight perspective, but capturing that data then is extremely important. We're a big user of Gainsight overall. And you think about, if I can log on as the chief customer officer, my CEO can log on, or my CIO can log on to and see a one-page dashboard which shows me the health of a customer, I have an immediate reference point to, how many support cases they are, where they are on their journey, are they happy, are they having challenges in some areas that we're trying to address. So that, being able to use that data to better serve customers overall is become an integral part of what we're doing. We were invested in it, before I arrived, but we've really scaled, how we want to seek feedback at every step of the journey, and then how we feed that in for us into Gainsight to be able to get a true picture, a 360 view, if you like, of the customer and check every stage of what we're doing.
Yeah, and we obviously count ourselves very fortunate to be working with Sitecore, and we consider you both a partner and a customer. And we love the way that the innovative ways that you use Gainsight, and definitely being able to have visibility of customer health has been huge, not just for Sitecore, but for many other customers as well. But how important do you think it is generally to have a specialized CS technology to help drive some of the changes that you're talking about? Now, whether that's giving you visibility of customer health or help kind of enabling your tech touch journey for your digital touch program, how important do you think is it to have a specialized CS technology as part of your tech stack?
Yeah, it's the only place you see everything for a customer, right? Otherwise, you're dipping in and out of 3 or 4 different systems to be able to get the true picture. You've got to get into a support system, you've got to get into a finance system, you've got to get into a CRM system. We're fortunate, we've got the connectivity with our CRM system. We get good data fed in from there. We've got the financial data engaged in there, and then the input that the CSM's going. So it's invaluable. You can't actually do the true role of a customer success manager unless you've got a full picture of what's going on with the customer. So it's a pivotal part of what we do, and I think actually customers are expecting it these days, right? I mean, yes, we have all the data privacy and all of the security components to be able to deal with, but the customer is expecting, I had this person call me 3 weeks ago, I've had this interaction with this part of your business, and I've had that interaction with that part of your business. They expect the next person that calls you or talks to you or sends you something, or is engaging with you digitally, to know that these things have happened. And I think this is just a basic, and we get it again, it comes back to that, as a consumer, we expect that from customers. We've experienced that now through our interactions with those, the retailers and the likes that have, big digital presence. But overall, I think as a B2B, and customers are expecting the similar and same kind of experiences. That's hopefully what we're on the way to creating, and that's really where you can start to add some true value.
So I think what the conversation to date has given us all so far is a really great understanding of the journey you've had and where you're at now. As I'd love to, as we kind of think about the rest of the conversation, kind of reflect on some of the big takeaways that you've had from the journey. And hindsight is always a great thing to have. But if I think about my career, most of the best lessons I've ever had have actually been things that I've tried that haven't come off, and kind of repivot, try again, and keep learning and iterating. So as you look back at the journey to date, are there kind of 2 or 3 key takeaways for you that as you kind of look back at the impact, the sea change impact that customer success has had at Sitecore, that really resonate with you, that you think is worth sharing with the group?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is customers' behaviors have changed, right? So if I've been fortunate to be in the IT industry for most part of my career, and give away my age, but certainly the last 20-ish years, maybe more. But the customer's expectations is very different. The customer's buying behavior is very different. As I said earlier, if you can imagine 60 to 70% of the buying is already done, what am I investing in as an organization? Do I need salespeople, to act the way they did previously? Do I need those salespeople to evolve? So I think, first of all, if we recognize that, I think that's one of the most critical parts of any change or journey that, certainly from a customer perspective, we've been on. We've not been frightened to challenge everything. I think that's another important part. We've, a lot of people talk about agility. Customers need to be agile. They need to be able to, flex and move and the likes. And that's difficult sometimes. We've got a 20-year history. We've got, employees that have been in Sitecore as an organization for, 10, 15 years plus. And we're asking them to, pivot or move or be, change the way that they're thinking. But I think if we have that customer mindset in our eyesight, in our line of sight, we're not frightened then to say, actually, we can make changes to our organization. We can pivot or we can be agile if we want to. That's just a mindset. We can change processes. We're not stuck to a way a process worked before. And I think that's been, I've been involved in change, throughout my career, but I think at Sitecore, it's really the culmination of, we're changing so many things at the same time. The old analogy of, we're changing the engine while we're still flying. We're very much in that mode of operation, but it's an exciting mode of operation. And, one of the things I would say to those that are listening is that, don't shy away from that change. I think customers are wanting us as vendors to be different to how we were. The expectations and actually just the way people do business is very different. So we've got to go about being different from how we were before, regardless of how far down the journey that we've been. And I think there's always reiterations. We'll always be in that change process. We'll always be in an improvement process overall. So I think, not being frightened of that, I think, I've been lucky, I think, in the way we've got some great leaders in Sitecore that are embracing that change. It's difficult at times, doesn't work every time, but, that whole adage of failing fast and going again, I think is something that we're adopting as an organization, but not being frightened of the feedback from customers. It's not always great feedback, right? It's not all rosy, right? I mean, I may have.
It's actually, I think it's the when you don't get feedback from customers is the one I most worry about, right? I can take negative feedback, I can take negative NPS, but at least the customer's engaging with you. They're telling you that something's wrong and giving you an opportunity to do something about it. The customers that worry me the most are the ones that are apathetic, the ones you never hear from, because like you said earlier, if you get NPS and you only got a 5% response rate, I mean, you're making a huge amount of assumptions just based on a microcosm of your customer base as a whole.
Yeah.
And actually, I think apathy is definitely one of the big warning signs that can lead any customer success strategy to fail, no matter how good your leaders, your people, your technology are. If you've got a customer base you're never hearing from, that's a huge problem. And so as you look at, I mean, there's so much has been done over the last 12 months. What's the customer reaction been like? I mean, I'm sure you'd be able to measure that in systems like NPS and others, but what's been the feedback, the reaction from the customer base?
Yeah, look, I mean, to sort of follow on from your train of thought, if they're not talking to you, they're talking to somebody else, right? The customers are always talking to somebody, right? So you want them to be engaged with you, positive or negative. And we can learn a lot from both, ends of the spectrum. But ultimately, I think, customers are really looking for just a good partnership. Right? They want to be able to rely on somebody. They want to be able to call you up and say, this is not working, or we want to do more here, or we want, this, we see our competitors, moving into these spaces. Can you help us move, in these types of areas? And I think, for us as an organization, it's important that we're able to respond to those types of those types of expectations from the customer overall. So I think, at the end of the day, if we can, we have great ambitions as an organization. Of course, many vendors will have, great ambitions of growth. We certainly do. We're certainly starting to see those growth components starting to, work. Our, SaaS revenues are growing significantly. But, at the end of the day, you sort of look at, what's the one true measure of customer success, right? And it's net retention. How much more of our existing customer base are willing to do more business with you than they did yesterday? And I think that's the true, it's a bit black and white, and there are many other metrics that we look at.
Completely
But that's
agree.
the endorsement. That's the endorsement of your strategy. That's the endorsement of what we're trying to, do as an organization. And, our net retention is improving. We're very cognizant of making sure that customers, that, like I said, the feedback is working. So I think on the whole, I'm sure, there are areas that we can still improve. I'm sure, we'll continue to work with customers in some difficult situations, but overall, the customer feedback we've had initially is very strong. They've liked the acquisition trail we've been on. I think it's important, though, that they see investment in the Sitecore original suite of solutions too, which is happening. We've gone from January, we were about a 1,200 people organization. We'll finish this year as a 2,200 people organization.
Wow.
And 60% of that growth has come organically. So, it's not all about just the acquisitions. I mean, they're great technologies. We've got some great people, but, we've hired 600 people of our own, in the organization to help fuel some of the growth and the customer expectations. So, overall, I think, there's a good momentum building, but it will manifest itself in either our growth numbers, but the core of it is you're measuring that your net retention. Are the customers willing to do more business with you at the end of the day? And hopefully that we're on that success path.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't align myself more closely with your comments. Net retention is the critical metric, I think, for any CS leader. And CS as a whole, as a function, is in how effective you are. In other words, if you never sell to another customer again, if you're just reliant on your existing book of business, is that book of business declining, neutral, or growing? And I think particularly we've hopefully coming out the other side of the pandemic now, and we've seen huge difficulties and challenges for our colleagues in new business trying to sell to new customers. So being able to ensure that we're delivering outcomes, ensure that we've got an ongoing proactive relationship, so that leads to things like advocacy, referenceability, and obviously growth has been more important now. And I think one of the small silver linings of the pandemic, and there are very few, is that it has put a greater emphasis on what we do, which I think has helped escalate and speed up making sure that customer success has the resources it needs, has individuals like you with a seat at the table, that has that direct line into the CEO, and to make sure you get solutions like Gainsight as part of your tech stack, because it becomes even more important. So I've learned so much, Lee, about the journey at Sitecore that you've been on. And as we kind of wrap up this conversation, as you referenced, both you and I, we've been in similar roles for a while. I'm coming up to now 20 years in customer success specific roles, or even the predecessors of customer success, and kind of being called a variety of different names before we all rallied around the customer success umbrella. And it never ends. It's not like you ever get there, because the challenges are different, the landscape is different, your products are different, your customers are different. So as we speed towards scarily the end of 2021, then we think beyond that, are there a couple of things on your roadmap at the moment from a CS perspective you're just starting to think about or formulate, as you did with Digital Touch and how you're working with your customers? Is there anything top of mind as you're thinking ahead over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, again, I mean, it's just about, it's got to be about the value realization for customers. If we, one of the things you said there is, we've definitely got customer success definitely has a seat at the table. It's actually becoming a much bigger part of, either boardroom discussions, when I presented to the board, the people that we have within the Sitecore board, they're very, very engaged in, what's the customer sentiment? What are they thinking about the investments we're making, the changes we've been making as an organization, the strategy we have overall, because actually, it really doesn't happen without that. And I think for me, one of the things that I will try and do a little bit more of in the next 12 months is make sure that, much more of the customer centricity and the customer voice is heard within those board meetings, actually, and also in the leadership team meetings within the organization. But I think also, and I alluded to it earlier, making sure the whole organization understands. It's not just the customer success. It's not only customer success that has to be mindful of the customer outcomes. The whole organization does. And I think that, sense checking your customer life cycle, making sure that you are engaged through every point of that in the right way, and making sure that everybody in your organization, has that mentality of, if I make these changes, what impact is that going to have, negative or positive on the customer outcomes? And I think, that for me will be a pivotal focus in the next 12, 18 months to make sure that, we've done a lot in customer success to change the way we go about, interacting with our customers. I now need to make sure it happens right across our business and get everybody engaged in that process overall. And, and hopefully then actually it means that the experience that customers are having, becomes a really fulfilling one, right? It doesn't matter who they speak to in your organization, they feel and get a sense of they are the priority. It doesn't matter how often you speak to them or engage with them or how you interact with them. There's always that mentality of, they have a very customer-centric mindset. I think that's going to be an important evolution. We get it, as I said earlier, in a lot of the consumer world. It's important we get that in the business world too. And that's something that we'll definitely focus on.
Well, I can't think of a better way of finishing on that point. So, Lee, thank you so much for everything you shared. Both I and I think you've taken away a huge amount, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions that people want to ask as well. But thank you so much, and really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Great, and I do hope people get some good value from our conversation. It's been a real pleasure. So, thank you very much.